Hello and welcome to another edition of Bombchu News. My name is Chris, I'm joined by Andron, and today we'll be covering the news that we found interesting. Rare has outlined their plans for adding content to Sea of Thieves. One of the biggest complaints players have had with Sea of Thieves has been the low amount of different things to do in the game. Rare is looking to address this issue with a string of updates for the game, starting with an update called the Hungering Deep, which is coming in May. The Hungering Deep will add some kind of new AI threat to the world, something that could require multiple crews to work together to try to defeat. The update will also add a new item, new mechanics, and new rewards. In addition to the Hungering Deep, May will also see the start of Rare's live events for the game, which will include weekly events and rewards. Some of the events would include new mechanics such as cursed cannonballs or hidden skeleton thrones, in order to give players new mechanics to play with during the weekly events. Rare also gave some details on the updates they have planned for later this summer. The first is called the Forsaken Shores, which will allow players to explore a new world with a related threat to fight. The second is called the Cursed Sails, which will bring in a new player ship type alongside a new threat to fight. It's great to see Rare hard at work for new content for Sea of Thieves, as I'm currently having a blast with the game. Hopefully this can help quell players' fear of a lack of content moving forward, as it seems like Rare has a pretty good roadmap of content planned for Sea of Thieves.
Platinumgames has a new title on the way, but this time they're aiming for mobile. Their newest title, World of Demons, is a yokai-focused action game for iOS. It appears that mobile studio DNA, the same company handling Nintendo's mobile initiative, is producing the game and also owns the trademark for the title. According to an interview from IGN with representatives from both DNA and Platinumgames, the game will be focused on representing yokai in an authentic way. Gameplay-wise, well, there wasn't a whole lot of info there. From the action screen shown, it looks like a slower-paced game where samurai slay demons, but currently that is just conjecture. It's interesting to see Platinumgames branching out to mobile, and I'm interested to see what they can pull off. Speaking of mobile games, a new Castlevania title has been announced, but only for mobile. The new Castlevania Grimoire of Souls has its own site already up, but only in Japanese. After applying a quick Google Translate, however, some minor details can be gleaned. Starting at the landing page art, we can see that Alucard, Simon Belmont, Soma Cruz, and many other fan favorites adorn the page, which immediately screams paid content. Looking further down the page, it appears that the game will star two new characters, Genta and Lucy. The story takes place many years after Dracula has finally been defeated, however a magic grimoire will be used to resurrect him if the protagonists aren't able to stop him. Outside of this information are a few screens showing in-game combat and a blurb that reads real-time struggles around the world. This seems to indicate that the game will play similar to a traditional Castlevania in some way. In addition to the story, you can fight bosses with 4 people as well as PvP and 4v4 action, which is a little surprising for a mobile title. Konami proved what it would do with Metal Gear Solid post-Kojima, and with that in mind, I don't have high hopes for the Castlevania series if they are already making new games for mobile before announcing any AAA entries on the way. Castlevania Grimoire of Souls will release in Japan for iOS, with no release announced for the West at the time of this broadcast.
Guinness World Records and Twin Galaxies have both stripped Billy Mitchell of all of his records. Billy Mitchell had held a lot of arcade game records, from the first perfect game of Pac-Man to the first million-point game of Donkey Kong. Recently, his Donkey Kong high score, featured in the documentary King of Kong as the score he submitted via a sketchy videotape, has come under more scrutiny. After review from Twin Galaxies, alongside recent observations from arcade hardware experts, Billy Mitchell's score for Donkey Kong was concluded to be from a game running on the arcade emulator MAME instead of actual arcade hardware, rendering the score invalid. Twin Galaxies also decided to remove all of his other records, as this instance of cheating throws his other scores into question as well. Guinness then announced that they would be doing the same, which makes sense since they refer to Twin Galaxies for all of their video game high score record verifications. While some of his records could have still been valid, it's impossible to ever be sure that this was the only time he's ever cheated, so I have to agree with the decision to remove all of Billy Mitchell's scores. For any King of Kong fans, there's a silver lining to this story. With Billy Mitchell being stripped of the record for the first million-point game of Donkey Kong, that means that rival Steve Wiebe will be the official record holder, bringing a happy close to the King of Kong story. Well, that's all the news that we found interesting today. Let us know what you thought about it down in the comments below, and we'll see you next time.